tremendous amount, you find time to do other things. I know, but not in detail, that you've got a deep and long interest in matters nautical.
Well, yes, it started at a very early age. I was in Reardon Smith's Nautical College in Cardiff in 1968-69, and I ended up with a 9 months remission of sea time for a deck officer, and I joined the Merchant Navy, a company called London Overseas Freighters. I spent 12 wonderful years romping around this world. The only places I didn't go were the North and South Poles. And for 3 years of my married life, my wife travelled with me.
Oh.
And she had a ball. Living on a ship with 30 men and 2 other women, it was quite nice for her.
Yes, I know they do say that you have a girl in every port, but you made sure by taking one with you.
Yeah, I made sure of that. Yeah. No, we don't talk about what we met before.
Yeah,
you know.
Yeah.
But there were some lovely people we met in this world.
Don't you work with sea cadets?
Yes, I do.
Yeah. And is this on these sailing ships, the actual old rigged sailing ships?
I am an ocean yacht master now. I'm no longer a master mariner with the Merchant Navy. I'm an ocean yacht master, and I used to deliver rich men's toys.
Right.
Very expensive yachts, all around the world, for and rich invaders. I then fell in love with the sea cadets, and it started off by being the chairman of Chesham Sea Cadet Unit.
Yes.
I then became district chairman of Ox and Bucks. I got the Lord's Lieutenant's Award for Buckinghamshire for the work I did in that. And then I was delivering a boat to Jersey, and I found a sea cadet vessel. So I walked across to what was called a power vessel to the John Jewelwood, and I ended up being a first lieutenant on board her. I then became an engineer because the engineer fell sick. They needed someone to run the engine room, so I did 2 jobs. And they said, well, as you're doing 2 jobs, you might as well do the command course as well. So I did the command course for a week, passed out as captain for the training vessels. The story then gets more interesting. I was working on the fleet, and I did probably 10 trips a year for them. And I got a phone call out of the blue, would I like to go to Spain and help build our new square rigger, the Royalist? And for the last 3 months of the build, I was in Spain helping finishing off the build for the square rigger, which we then brought back to the UK.
That's the nautical side. But I think I might be right in guessing that you have more than a passing interest in motor cars. Not least of all because perhaps the history. I mean, people in Berkhamsted might know the name Delisle because it's on a board on a repair on the industrial estate, which I think you may have had something to do with. But beyond that, I think, do you have an interest in cars?
What happened was, when I left the sea, when I retired from the sea, what do you do with an out-of-work navigating officer? So I started a garage. My father was the service manager at Snuxall's Garage all his life on the A41. And I thought it'd be a great idea to start a garage. I had some wonderful customers, but I was a good mechanic, but I wasn't a good businessman. And then 18 years ago, my son walked up to me after having done all the training courses and everything else. He said, Dad, what are you doing with the business? I said, why? He said, I want it. I said, it's all yours, son. You talk to the accountant. You sort it out with the accountant. I'm going back to sea. And he has built 3 very good businesses within 2 in Berkhamsted and 1 in Holmer Green. He has a good reputation, which we started many years ago. And he still has 1 or 2 of my old customers. And he works hard. He supports a lot of the local Sammy's Sweets, for example, several others. He supports them. So even he now is giving something back to the town. Yeah. But as far as cars are concerned, I only work on classics now.
Yes, that's. I know that another colleague of ours, Dave Fennell,
yes,
who's known for his apart from his brusqueness, is known for his passion for steam-driven cars.
And if you ever want to talk to an interesting person about the history of cars and the cars he's raced and where he's raced, it is fascinating.
Well, I think we should do Dave Fennell, and I'd like to make another conversation with him because he is a character with a lot of experience and actually not dissimilar in the sense that he marshalled the field prior to you taking it over just recently.
in great disrespect to everybody, Dave Fennell has done far more for Round Table, Rotary, than anyone ever gives him credit for. If you knew what he'd done when he was a Round Tabler, if you had the history of what he'd done,
well, maybe we'll get that,
and the history of what he supports behind the scenes that people don't see, and then he doesn't always get the credit he deserves, in my opinion.
Right? I'm sure that's the
But
case.
He's a solid piece of work. You know where you stand, a bit like a Yorkshireman, you know.
Yeah.
He tells you exactly how it is.
Yes, and I know what a Yorkshireman's like.
Yeah, I know. I've seen your pockets are a bit deep. But no, in all honesty, I've done a fair bit, but I have to say it pales into significance with what Dave's done.
Well, then it would be very interesting, because beating what you're doing and done would take some doing, in my opinion. But look, of all them things now, just of general interest, when you're not doing all those things, how do you relax? What do you do?
I like making models. I used to make quite a lot of models. When COVID came along, I made a beautiful speedboat, Fletcher Arrow, made that. I build carburetors up. I like using my hands.
Right.
You know, I've got a very, very good wife. I've got 3 dogs. We spend a lot of time walking. Wendy's very involved with Inner Wheel, so I help her with her flower arranging. She does the flower arranging. I do all the fetching and carrying. My job is the gopher, which I quite like.
Well, yes. I think a few of us are in that situation.
Yeah.
So, music taste, do you have?
I love everything from Bellel's Rivera to Inagola da Vida by Iron Butterfly, who you've probably never heard of.
Oh, well, yeah, I've heard of Madame Butterfly. I've never met her, but yeah.
No, it's heavy rock.
Oh, right, okay.
I like all the modern music. Yeah. There's a tune, if I like it, doesn't matter who's done it, I like it. I don't go down one road. Paloma Faith she's pretty good at the moment. You know, there's all sorts. I just like a collection of music, and I'm a Radio 2 fan.
Oh, right, okay.
I do like Radio 2.
So, what's the guy that's just recently gone from Radio 2 that everybody's...
Oh, he used to do Steve Wright in the afternoon.
Yeah, Steve Wright. He's just...
Long love songs.
Just passed, hasn't he?
He was well, the thing about Steve Wright was when he moved into Radio 1, I was travelling to Prescott Street and Tower Hill to do my exams for mates and masters.
Right.
And he was my radio companion while I was on the M1.
Oh, okay.
So I used to listen to him, Tony Blackburn.
Oh, yeah, I remember Tony Blackburn.
And I used to listen to them as I travelled up and down the motorway. So they've always been in the background. And I just feel that something must have been pretty tragic for him to just, just go like that.
Yes. Well, I mean, they say things happen, but obviously the memories you have of people and so on, and like you've got a particular memory of driving down the M1 in a rocket-driven, steam-driven car.
It was an Escort 1300 GT Mark 1. Yeah. And the other funny story about that was I was travelling to and from London, as I said, and one particular instance, they redesigned a roundabout in Hemel Hempstead.
Oh, right, not the magic roundabout.
And instead of having a roundabout,
they
had 7.
Yeah.
But the funniest bit of all was I happened to be coming off the motorway when they opened it, and we were all stopped at the junction, and I was about 4 cars back from the actual first mini roundabout, and the police took down all the signs, all the placards, the roadmen took everything down, and then it was a free-for-all. And that first introduction to the magic roundabout was fascinating.
Yeah.
Now it's one of the best moving roundabouts in the country.
Yeah, it's amazing. When I came to Berkhamsted, probably 20 years ago now or more, and came across that island, I found it. I thought, well, this is really a ridiculous idea, but you're right.
It does get you through.
It does work. You've just got to be a bit careful because it works that well that people fly around it.
Yeah.
And you've got to be a bit nippy sometimes. But yeah, okay. Well, Chris, it's really been interesting hearing you talk, particularly about things that I don't know. I mean, I do know what you do for Rotary. I don't know the detail of it, and you've expounded some of that, and I appreciate and thank you for that. Is there anything finally that if you were talking to posterity, if you're talking to people who might watch this, however many, however few, what sort of advice on your life experience and involvement in Rotary and the things you do, what sort of advice would you leave us with?
Oh, that's a difficult one. To me, I've been lucky enough to travel around the world, and I've found that 90% of the people I've met have been fantastic. There are one or two villains in this world, and we do seem to spend a lot of time talking about the bad stuff. I just wish that people would look at the good stuff that goes on. Yeah. There is some good stuff that goes on in this world. Unfortunately, the news is only interested in the bad stuff.
Well, that's what sells papers.
It does sell papers.
Unfortunately.
But I have been lucky. I've walked down the streets in Korea. I've walked down the streets in Japan. I've never felt unsafe in any country I've been in. I've walked through Central America, where she's supposed to be dangerous. In the 60s, in the 70s and 80s, I was walking down Corinto and places like that. And they were lovely people. They had nothing, but they'd share it with you. You know, yes. Whatever they had, they would share with you. Indians are lovely people to be with. Pakistanis are lovely people to be with. What I find difficult now is we have to be careful what we say. And I find it hard if I say, that's an Indian man. Some people say to me, you shouldn't say that. Why not? I'm an Englishman. There's a Welsh, my wife is a Welsh woman. You know, why can't we say that?
Yes, well, it is becoming very prescriptive, how you speak and the language that you use. And I'm sure a lot of people feel the same way. There are people who are passionate about some of the prejudices and discriminations that pick up every comma, every dot in a sentence, analyse it, and then run on a campaign. And I'm sure a lot of what is said loosely is not meant in any disrespectful or antagonistic way.
No, not at all.
But we are taken to task. I mean,
well, I as you know, I teach between 12 and 18-year-olds on these training vessels. 12 on the power vessels, 6 on the sailing vessels, and 24 on the square rigger. And we have to do so much safeguarding. We have to do so much privacy and public, paperwork. And we're not allowed to do this. We're not allowed to do that. And I think kids today are losing out on that. The good thing we do is they don't have their phones during the day. They have their phones at night. And to be honest, they suddenly start talking to each other.
Yes.
And they suddenly start taking an interest in things. Now, we'll never lose that. The genie's out of the bottle, isn't it?
Yeah.
You know, everybody's got them. We've just got to be sensible about how we use them. And you've got to also be very careful. I mean, I remember you could actually touch a child. Now you can't touch a child. So when that 12-year-old is crying its eyes out and wants its mum or its dad, all you've got to do is stand opposite it. You know, and I can remember the days when you say, okay, son, come on, cheer up. If you're not happy, we can do something about it. You daren't do it now. And I find that very sad.
Well, in Yorkshire it says, come on, son, I'll sort of give you a clip.
Yes, yeah. I can give you a hilarious story about that. I had a very badly behaved crew on board one of my training vessels. And these 2 young lads were really messing up everything on the first 2 days. So I said, right. I gave them the morning talk. I said, right now, everybody, those of you who have misbehaved, I'm going to drive this ship 12.5 miles offshore, where I'm then in international waters. And it will give me the right to beat any of you who misbehave or don't do the right thing. For 2 more days, they were excellent. Then they twigged I had told the story.
Yeah.
The saddest bit of the whole story is I got reported and I was pulled up in front of the safeguarding team for saying it. But I have to say it was dealt with, in my view, correctly. They had to tell me off, but you could see the smile on the corner of their eyes. But you have to be so careful now, because we're carrying the most precious cargo. You know, you could carry cans, you can carry cars, you can carry grain, you can carry oil, but carry somebody's child.
Yes.
You know.
So, as I see it then, what you're saying is the world is a wonderful place. People are generally wonderful. And we ought to recognise that more than what
I
is
think
done.
so. I do. Yes, I really do.
And on that cheerful note then, Chris, I'll thank you for that and appreciate your time and trouble to do this. And I only hope that the video comes